Glad to have the old music back and glad to be back with you guys here on Texas Football. Thank you guys for joining us for our Wednesday night live stream, the Hump Day edition of our live streams. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow Lifetime Longhorn young prodigy CJ Vogel and my good friend, the newest member of the Owen Texas family, my good friend Jeff Howe joining us as well. Of course, lots to get into. We got some mock draft. As a matter of fact, my own CJ Vogel, our own CJ Vogel has his mock draft out there and where he believes all the Longhorns are going to land in the NFL draft. So we'll hit that, talk about how many Longhorns he's got predicted to be drafted in his upcoming draft. There's also some other mock drafts out there. Lance Zerline has a mock draft. We didn't get into that one yesterday, so I want to get into that. There's also a post-combine Fox Sports top 101 overall big board. I want to get into that a little bit. Also, there's I believe a CBS Sports power ranking of college football quarterbacks for the 2025 season. We'll talk about where Arch Manning sits in the latest power ranking of college quarterbacks, and I will dive into whatever else you guys want to discuss. You guys know how it works. You drive the show any direction you want to go. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time, and we're really happy that all you guys could join us, and we always appreciate your participation in the show. All right, let's start, guys. You guys know I'm a mock slut. I love mocks, and I love when my good friends do good mocks, and that's what CJ did over there. We won't reveal all the details, but CJ, you did your own mock draft, and basically you put all the Longhorns in got with a certain team, and you got where they'll be drafted. How many Longhorns overall did you have projected to be drafted in your mock?
I think I had 13. 13 of the 14 ended up making the mock 2.0 today. The only one that did not was Aiden Connor. I'm still just a little up in the air about what his NFL profile might be. Of course, I do think he ends up in a camp. Does he get drafted? Look, he's played a lot of football, but right now, just a little, maybe unknown right now for me. But look, I got the 49ers taking two Cowboys. Geez. I got them taking two Longhorns. I'm thinking about who I want my Cowboys to take. No, two Longhorns to the 49ers. Calvin Banks had 11. I just think if you're a good defensive back and you end up in Pittsburgh, that's a great fit, right? I just love Mike Tomlin. I was thrilled that was where Ryan Watts ended up last year. Unfortunately, Ryan Watts been dealing with some back and neck injuries, which has kind of derailed his NFL pursuit as well. But I think, Niners just traded away Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk's coming off of a torn ACL. It makes sense to go get a wide receiver with some speed to go along with Javon Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, who they took last year out of Florida. The Bears need all the help that they can get on the offensive line. And if they're not going to get Kelvin Banks at 10, well, hey, there's Cam Williams for you in the second round. They got two picks there. But the other one I'll go through real quick, and I'll field any questions the chat's got for me, or if y'all have got any for me as well. Look, Quinn Ewers, 60th overall to the Lions, and the Lions maybe not in a position to take a quarterback right now. But look, we've seen it before where a team takes a young quarterback early in the draft. The Packers with Jordan Love is the most notable here. Jared Goff's going to be under contract until 2027 at the very least. That's where he has a team option. If they accept him and he goes into 2028 under contract, he's going to be making $61 million. Now, at that point in 27, he's going to be making about 56. So it's still a big chunk of change, but that roster with what they have already built in Detroit, I think it fits very well with what Quinn Ewers has worked with in the past. And of course, whatever scheme is now implemented with the departure of Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears, I think it makes all the sense in the world to find something that fits Jared Goff, therefore also fitting Quinn Ewers, in my opinion, in terms of what they bring to the table as a quarterback position. So it's an early draft, but look, Quinn back end of round 2, maybe sneaking up a little bit into the middle of round 2, I think is kind of where this is trending right now for me. But I think that's overall, again, and this is kind of why I did it, was just to stir the conversation up. But I think that's an interesting point. We're just going to continue to see Ewers rise and rise and rise as the draft creeps up.
Yeah. Jeff, what are your thoughts? I like that Gunnar Helm there to Kansas City. It's an interesting one there too, because anybody who gets to follow Travis Kelce and get to have Patrick Mahomes their quarterback, got to think you hit the lottery. What are your thoughts there, Jeff, about CJ's second mock draft here?
Got Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez before him, so you got a nice little tight end legacy in KC. I'll tell you what, I like CJ's mock draft a lot better than one mock draft I saw today. And you know what? I'll call it out. It was a mock draft by Chris Trapasso at CBS. He didn't have Jahdae Barron in the first round at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Come on. So that's when I'm like, I can't. Rod, I know you're a self-proclaimed mock draft slut. You love all the mocks. I can't take your mock seriously.
No.
With some oversight like that.
I agree. That's post combine. Your mock don't have Jahdae in the first round. Come on.
CJ, he's got a guy we talked about in the first round that we talked about, but not as a first round guy. Jalen Noel from Iowa State.
Yeah.
Had him in the first round. No Jahdae Barron. So I don't know, man. But no, he's a man after my heart because those first two picks, I've been talking about those two specific destinations for those two guys for a while. I mean, Jahdae Barron just feels like he belongs with the Steelers or the Ravens, those organizations I keep talking about that traditionally make really good draft picks. But Deshaun Elliott in Pittsburgh, too. Deshaun had a really good year last year. I've mentioned Kelvin Banks of the 49ers. Hey, you draft Trent Williams replacement, just put him in right tackle, and then when Trent Williams gets ready to decide, okay, in 4 years, now I'm ready to go into Canton, move Kelvin Banks over to the left side. I dig it, man. Isaiah Bond, that's Rod, Kyle Shanahan, that speed, that's kind of falls into what he likes. Jaden Blue to the Cowboys is interesting because I know the Cowboys probably have their eyes on Ashton Genty. I just don't think he's going to be there by the time they pick. So they've got to come out of this draft, I think, with a running back or two.
Yes.
Draft. So that's good for Jaden Blue. And it's hard to disagree. I mean, look, if Vernon Broughton ends up going that late, and then the Seahawks will have gotten a hell of a steal.
He could, man. That's how deep this interior D-line draft is. They're saying like it may be the deepest interior D-line draft in, talking like 30 years. Like they're saying it's that deep. Like it's been a really long time since there's been an interior D-line draft. So you may get a Vernon Broughton that drops that low. And he could end up as an undrafted free agent. I mean, that's how deep. And I agree, he's an NFL player, but I agree that's how deep that group is. The Jaden Blue thing is interesting to the Cowboys because the Cowboys have tried, and organizationally, they have tried, and even when Jason Garrett was there, that Tony Pollard draft pick, they call them airbacks or web backs. Web backs. And I call them smart backs, but you're just talking about the new age running back that is more geared for the passing game and mismatches and matchup advantages in the passing game, just as much as they are in the running game. Now, Jaden Blue is probably more the latter, probably built for the passing game there, more so than the actual running game. But I could see them going back to that. I mean, Deuce Vaughn, even though there's a sentimental aspect to that draft pick, he was also kind of in that vein as well as one of those types of backs. So in addition to, yes, get you a bell cow running back, but you can also get you a boutique complementary back in this draft. And this is the draft to do it. They say the running back draft is, I think Matt Miller said he's been doing this now for like 15 years. So that's the deepest running back draft that he has seen. So it's a deep running back draft too. So you can get two of them, man. If you don't get a running back and a D lineman in this draft, you probably, for most of the NFL, you may have done yourself a little bit of a disservice because that's how deep those positions are in this draft. It's considered basically you can find a good one, a decent one in like the 5th through 7th round potentially. You can find one that may end up, being a quality player, either making a roster or being on a training, being on a practice squad for you.
I don't think Matt Miller would leave Jahdae Barron out of a first round in his mock draft.
Oh, hell no. Dude, Todd McShay said Jahdae, there's not 10 players better in the draft, in the whole draft, than Jahdae Barron. He said it's not 10
apparently, according to this mock draft, there's 32 players better than Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, and Kirk Herbstreit said that he's the player most likely to, the DB, I should say, in this draft, most likely to make the biggest splash will be Jahdae Barron. So, yeah, I don't know what that other guy was doing, but you know what? If Jahdae Barron slips out of the first round, that's why he's not going to slip because somebody's going to trade up for him. I think if he slips that low, somebody's going to trade up for the
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
a smart team in the back half of that first round. You can add a heady, intellectual defensive back that has a Thorpe in his closet. they're going to do it, right? There are smart teams for a reason. If he falls to the second round route, I don't know, pick a punishment because I'll do whatever. Because there's just no way. There's no way.
Yeah, I'll run the old Mad Dog Madden 1,000-yard shuttle if he drops to the second. I run the 1,000-yard shuttle, and I'll do it with a weight vest on if he slips to the second round. There you go. And I couldn't do it very well in my prime. There's no way I could do it now without dropping damn near dead and throwing up. So there you go. That's my bet. I'll put my money on it. Put my money where my mouth is there. All right, let's get to some of the questions here before we get back to some of the topics. How about this one from Alan? He says, who do we think gets the biggest Akina boost this next season? That is a good question. I'm going to go with the safeties, number one, just because I think he'll be working more closely with the safeties because they have a nickel coach and a cornerbacks coach. But, of course, I think he'll be working with the entire secondary too. Guys, I'm probably going to go with a player to get the biggest bump. Taft's already ascended and taken his game to another level. It's got to be a Derek Williams or a Jelani McDonald. Maybe one of those two guys to me.
I'll go a different route. I'll go Xavier Filsaime.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Just a guy that we didn't see a ton last year. I don't think he got the red shirt because I think he played in too many games in the regular season. But I feel like Derek Williams we'll see where he's at health wise by the time we get to camp, as he's in the rehab process from the ACL. And Jelani McDonald, I feel like is just on the cusp. Like he's right there. Like we saw it last year. He's ready to take that jump. But I think Filsaime could learn a lot from Coach Akina as far as playing the safety position. I think when you look at just range ball skills, the whole package he's got. Let's not forget this guy was, depending on which recruiting rankings you were looking at, this guy was a 5-star prospect coming out of McKinney. So I think Coach Akina gets some of those raw tools to work with, help him realize. And Rod, you said it. I mean, Coach Akina is going to get those tools out of you. He's just not going to show you how to use them. You've got to figure that out. You got to figure out how to use them yourself. I'll go Xavier Filsaime.
I was going to go that direction as well. Look, freaky athlete. You just don't know necessarily what he can do in an extended period of time. And look, having heard and seen and read all about what Akina's done to development in the back end, it makes me wish he was able to work with a Tyler Owens or a Keaton Crawford, guys that had that freaky level athleticism, that speed that you just can't teach, and just find ways to utilize them in the back end of the secondary. Obviously, Keaton Crawford ended up having a pretty solid career over at Utah State with Coach Choate. He ended up knocking away at the combine as well. So he did all right. But look, there's just something about a guy that might touch the 4.3s roaming around in your secondary that's got some fingerprints on them from Dwayne Akina. So Xavier Filsaime is going to be my pick as well. I think Jordan Johnson-Rubel is going to benefit too. Just throw both of them in there. That whole room will, obviously. But look, Jordan Johnson-Rubel, I think his speed, it gets underappreciated at times, right? He didn't run track at IMG Academy, but he was a guy that touched, the 10-second 100-meter dash pretty quickly in his high school career. On top of that, you talk to anybody that's played high school football with him, whether it be 7-on-7, whether it just be, dapping up, kind of chopping it up in the hall. That's a guy that's really, really football smart. So I'm excited to see how he can kind of learn from a Taft, learn from an Akina, and take that into his own game, because I think both of those guys are going to benefit greatly from having the GOAT back in Austin.
Yep. And I think one of the things that Texas was trying to prioritize prior to Coach Akina coming is actually a specialty of Coach Akina's, which is position flex, versatility, and multiplicity. He's always trained his guys to be 5-tool DBs. He always said, hey, the best 5 DBs will get on the field, period. I'll find a place for you. But if you can't tackle them and you can't cover, you can't get off the blocks, you can't, play zone coverage and have eye discipline, you be an all-around defensive back. If you can't do that, it's going to be hard to see the field in Coach Akina's secondary. So there will be some guys who will rise and ascend unexpectedly. And it always happens to Coach Akina's secondary. Go ask Adrian Phillips how he ended up seeing the field in different places because of that. Go ask, I remember my boy Dakari Pearson was an All-American one year and then wasn't playing the next year. All right, Ahmad Brooks went from corner, got benched, and ended up starting at safety. It happens in a Coach Akina secondary because he's constantly looking for the best 5 DBs. And if he finds the best 5 DBs, he's going to find a way to get him on the field, even if you got to move some pieces around. So that's what we watch.
You remember that 08 defense, Rod? He started a redshirt freshman and a true freshman at safety. Yep. He ran Earl Thomas and Blake Gideon out there.
Best five.
He wanted to take a snap of college football. Yeah, exactly. Those were his best five.
This is his best five. That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, you don't want to start a true freshman if it's not absolutely necessary. But for Coach Aquino, I guarantee he had to state that case and win that argument because, Mac Brown wasn't big about playing freshmen like that either. He had to go win that argument and state his case. And I guarantee you Coach Aquino did it passionately. So that's something to watch too. Good question there. All right, let's get back to
I look forward to I want to find out if there's more guys that Coach Aquino's got that you and he could kind of go to battle with, like the Shockey Brown conversations over the years. And
the Shockey Brown was good.
Mikel Thompson. Yeah. And you know what, man? Mikel ended up getting drafted, so I guess Coach Aquino was right at the end of the day.
Got drafted before Quandre. He went in the same draft. He went before Quandre, and it was clear from the film that Quandre was a better football player. Like it was like anybody who watches, nothing against Mikel Thompson. He was a good player too, but Quandre was a much better player and made more plays, was more instinctive. And yet the NFL looks at measurables. I tell you guys all the time, the draft ain't necessarily always about your productivity on the field. A lot of times it's about what your potential and what you could be. And Mikel Thompson, long range guy, looked like he's from the Legion of Boom. He did look like one of them dudes. So that's why and he ran fast. He was a track guy, if I'm not mistaken, right?
He was a 25-foot long jumper in high school.
Boom. And Quandre was short arms, kind of an average to above average 40. And you can overthink it not watching the film, and that's what happened. But you know what? Texas did the same thing with Quandre. That was family. I mean, that was Quentin Jamo's brother, and yet Texas still offered him late. He was one of the last guys they offered to bring him in, and so he's always had to kind of, prove himself with that chip on his shoulder. Honestly, that's what made Quandre great. I think without that, Quandre, he wouldn't have been as great as he's always been at every level, if not for that chip on his shoulder. So good stuff there, Jeff. All right, let's get this question from Justin. Super chat. Thank you, Justin. We appreciate this one. Justin's got – here it is right here. How does PK and Nanson's style mesh with Orfe and Coach Aquino's style? Rod, has Coach Aquino coached safety with the size of the guys we have on the roster? And I think he kind of asked the question kind of twice there, Justin. So thank you very much, Justin. We appreciate that. Very kind of you. And the second was like, how does PK and Nansen style match up with Orfe and Coach Aquino style? Rod, has Coach Aquino coached bigger safeties like the ones we have? He's coached big safeties. I mean, Mike Griffin, Mike Huff aren't small dudes. They're big. Now, I don't know if they're as big as if you go look at the profile of all these guys, but he's coached guys who have adequate to above average size at the safety position and speed. I mean, you don't get better in the combination of skills of guys like Mike Huff and Mike Griff. This is how freaky Mike Griff's basically his testing measurements were. When he got to, when he tested at the combine, he tested so well that his measurements analytically matched up with corners. So when he got to league, they put him at corner. They did. They was like, we got to try him at corner, man, because everything say he can play corner, change direction, speed, can play corner. And, that's a nuance because you can't just throw somebody out there at corner when you get into the league, like, go play corner. But they put him at corner at first. They put him at corner a little bit. That's how, expansive and that's how wide-ranging the skill set and the overall athletic profile was. So these guys, these guys are freaky. Phil Simi and Derek Williams, Jonah Williams. I mean, you're talking about some of the guys with some of the freakiest skill sets and overall dimensions you'll see at the safety position. But I can't wait till he gets his hands on Jonah Williams. I can't wait. I said when I saw the boys film, I said, I think that young man can win the Thorpe one day. He's got the guy that now the architect that can build him and transform him into a Thorpe Award winner, in my opinion.
Thinking about some of the bigger safeties Coach Aquino would have coached over the years. Christian Scott was a 200+ pound safety. Nolan Brewster was, 6'1", 6'2", 205, 210.
What was Drew Kelson? Was he like a hybrid?
That's another one. Yeah. Drew Kelson was, 6'2", probably Drew Kelson was probably 215, 220.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, did Coach Aquino coach a guy like Jelani McDonald? Not off the top of my head that I can remember. Because I think OJ McClintock had already moved off of DB by the time.
Yeah, he was gone. He was gone by then. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't think of one that big, but Jelani's a unique guy in his own right. I mean, you just don't see a lot of guys, CJ, with his size that have the athleticism and explosiveness that he's got.
Yeah, I was trying to look back at some of the guys out of Stanford recently. Of course, when Aquino left Austin, who were some of the guys that he coached up there? Texans fans should be familiar with Justin Reed. He's 6'1", 210.
Yeah.
That ended up coming out of Stanford. Another one I just came across was Paulson Adebo. Not as big, but again, another physical body. I believe he's been with the New Orleans Saints for quite some time. So yeah, 6'1", 195 is kind of where he's been listed at. So again, not a 6'3" Jonah Williams or 6'3" Ellis Hicks, but that physical bodies, which certainly translate to playing larger than you would expect. Andrew Makuba, I think, with Aquino would have been awesome. Just to see that physicality come out would have been great. To see him find ways to utilize his vision, his instincts. And not saying Blake Gideon did a poor job with him. I mean, we're talking about him being one of the draft darlings of this upcoming draft. So he did a heck of a job in the 1 year that he had him. But look, I look at the individual traits and some of those intangible things, and with the way that previous guys have been developed and the best have been brought out of him, I couldn't help but imagine what a Makuba could have done in 3 years of coaching from Dwayne Aquino.
The closest thing Coach Aquino might have had to Jelani McDonald, and it's not a great comp, but I just went over and looked it up. Kenny Vaccaro was 214 pounds at the combine when he came out.
That's big.
As far as a guy that could play safety, now could Jelani McDonald play the nickel as well as Kenny Vaccaro? I don't know, because the West Virginia game against Tavon Austin, that got Kenny Vaccaro in the first round. So probably not, but just in terms of a bigger safety that can do a lot of different things, yeah, probably. I mean, like I said, it's not a great comp, but yeah, if Coach Aquino could get the most out of Kenny Vaccaro, he can get the most out of Jelani McDonald.
Yeah, and I think that what's important, Justin, is that he has proven to be successful in developing a lot of different physical prototypes at safety. I mean, Earl Thomas was built like a cornerback. I mean, literally, that guy was small. He was kind of built like me and Quandre Diggs, honestly. And ended up being great. Same thing with a guy like Ahmad Brooks. But then he had obviously bigger safeties and guys who were a little bit longer and rangier at that position, getting to guys like Kenny Vaccaro and getting to some of the other players. So I think that, it may be that they got some very unique athletes now, but I think that Coach Aquino is up to the challenge. And by the way, I don't think he'll be doing it alone. Back to your first part of the question, Justin, how does PK and Nansen style match up with Orfe and Coach Aquino's style? When Coach Nansen came in, I told you guys, I said, we're going to see more exotics. We're going to see more exotics because Arizona just had a lot of exotic looks. They were the most exotic defense, arguably, in the Power 5 that last year Johnny Nansen was there. And there's no doubt he brought that exotic element to Texas, right? You got your dime package for the first time, got your NASCAR package for the first time, got a 3D tackle package, got a big nickel package. I mean, it goes on and on. All right, you saw the versatility and the exotic nature of Johnny Nansen's influence. And I think one of the other things that's a big Nansen influence was Texas played more single high safety, more middle field close safety this season than they had played previously when PK had been there. So PK usually has more snaps of two high safeties in what they call middle field open. That's usually for the first 3 years that he was here, it was middle field open more than a middle field close, more than single high. For the first time since he's been here with Johnny Nansen and that influence, they were more single high looks and middle field close. And that's because I think ultimately they want to start playing more single high so they can start playing more man-to-man coverage. That's my next prediction. Getting back to Orfe and Aquino style. I looked up Coach Aquino when he was at Arizona last year and how much man coverage they played this past season. They were in the 90th percentile in man coverage rates. They were 75th percentile in cover 3 rates. So they're playing a lot of man and they're playing a lot of cover 3, which is all single high. All right, single high middle field close coverages. And when I look at their coverage matrix, they play a lot of cover 3 and cover 1 for the most part. I do think that's where Texas wants to start transitioning to play a lot more man. They play a lot of match quarters. They play a lot of match thirds. Right now, I think the next phase for them is to try to play more man. Getting back to Orfe, when I broke down Orfe's time at Rutgers in their coverage matrix, they were top 25 in man coverage rate in the Power 5 in 2023. All right. And in 2024, when I looked at both of those, if you go look at Max Melton, who was one of the corners that was drafted in 2023, I believe in his second round, he had the second highest rate of man coverage out of all the cornerbacks who were being drafted that year. Second highest rate. I looked at, what's his name? Longerbeam. You talked to him, CJ, at the combine. He had a 42% man coverage rate. That was only of the draft eligible corners this year, only behind Travis Hunter, who was at a 44% man coverage rate. And it was actually, Notre Dame's Benjamin Morrison had a 47% man coverage rate. We know Notre Dame plays as much man as anybody in the country. Yeah. And we also know if you got Travis Hunter, why the hell are you going to put him in zone? All right. It's Travis freaking Hunter. Figure out who their best player is. They do go guard that guy. All right. So that's why he played a lot of man coverage. So other than those two draft eligible corners, nobody played more man coverage than Robert Longerbeam. So all the signs point to, in addition to what they're doing now, the exotics now and plenty of match coverage, they're going to add on some more man coverage. So to me, that's how the styles match up with Orfe and Akina. And remember, Akina has worked with Nansen before, so he understands Nansen's, proclivities for getting exotic and getting some of those kind of freaky packages in there that are really confusing, discombobulate quarterbacks. And I got to tell you, I think another thing is, I don't know if you guys watched Will Howard's workout at the combine. It was horrible. Like it was terrible work. It was terrible. I think honestly, it bothers Texas. I think they knew that Will Howard, he's not necessarily a high-level elite quarterback. They surrounded him with good weapons, and he made some good decisions at the right time. But I think that's why they want to play more man coverage. So when they start playing quarterbacks like a Cade Klubnik, or even who are above average like a Will Howard, you play more man coverage, you make those throws a lot more difficult. And you can apply pressure exotically in a lot more ways and just make a quarterback's life hell. Texas couldn't do that against Will Howard because they don't blitz a lot and they don't play a lot of man coverage. So even though Will Howard can figure out with all those really good weapons on the outside of Ohio State, there'll be holes here and there in your pattern match coverage. There'll be holes here and there. There'll be opportunities for Will Howard to have some time to look downfield. And I think they took advantage of that. Now, it's not like you can take a lot of advantage of it because Texas was a really good defense. But I think if you want to take the next step, you've got to be able to play a little bit more man coverage and balance out your coverage, your coverage usage. And I think that's what they want to do.
I think that was great. That was a tremendous breakdown there, Rob, because I completely agree. You start looking at what kind of stymied the Texas defense in those drives that Ohio State was able to move the ball. It was kind of the catch after the run. So, if you're able to have a body right on a body, it helps bring those guys down. It also – in that game, and this kind of goes back to the personnel that you have in the defensive back room, Texas is getting longer and they're getting faster on the outside, right? Yeah, I think, again, no disrespect to Jahdae Barron, but I don't think we were expecting 4.3 in the combine this past weekend. However, we knew that he was tremendous in zone coverage, and you put him on one side of the field, he's going to do a pretty darn good job of locking that down, especially in the thirds. The thing with that is he doesn't have the longest arms, right? He's not the tallest body, right? Measured in at 5'11". You start looking at who Texas is starting to bring in at cornerback. It's almost like a prerequisite to be about 6'1" or 6 foot, 6.5 to get on the field or get an offer from the Longhorns. You start looking at some of the offers out of Florida that Orfe's already made already, right? They just offered a 6'2" cornerback out of Edna Carr. They have 2 offers out of Florida in which both guys are 6'1", 6'2" coming out. So I'm excited because this, again, you start looking at what really good teams are able to do, and it's match up with those 5-star guys on the outside at wide receiver and do so mano a mano. I don't think Texas did that very often, nor were they in a position to do that. So, yeah, sign me up for it, Rod, because that brings you the elite of the elite of the elite athletes in your secondary, which we've already seen. When you got some really freakish athletes with good coaching, good things happen.
Yeah. Can I bring up some numbers real quick, Rod? Because
go ahead.
Talking about coverages, and I just with Coach Akina, I think it goes back to his time with Will Muschamp and even his time with Johnny Nansen at Arizona. Man, if you got a good pass rush, you can run whatever kind of coverage you want behind that pass rush.
Yeah.
And I look at havoc rate. Havoc rate's one of those statistics that I love looking at. It's your percentage of sackles, as Jerry Hamilton calls them, plus your passes defense, which is PBUs, and interceptions, and of course fumbles. Let's look at Arizona. Arizona had one of the highest havoc rates in the country in 2023. 18% havoc rate, front seven havoc rate of 11.2%. Which is really damn good. This past season, and Rod, you know how like going from just 1 percentage point, it means like that means you probably had an off year.
Yep.
Arizona's havoc rate went from 18% down to 14.3% without Johnny Nansen.
Wow.
Front seven havoc rate went from 11.2 to 9.
Wow.
Texas in 2023, 17.7% havoc rate, 10.6% front seven havoc rate. This past season, you go from 17.7 overall to 21.1.
Woo!
And your front seven havoc rate goes from 10.6% to 13%.
Wow.
So, yeah, you're just
wow.
And yeah, so you're getting and we're expecting the pass rush to actually be better this year.
Yeah.
You can if you want to run more man coverage, you can, because that pass rush is going to allow you to really get as freaky as you want on the back end.
Jeff, to that point, it's a great point. I know we're going on this topic, but it was a really compelling one. When we started asking Sark about the pass defense after the Washington game, you remember how nonchalant he was? Like, I'm not concerned about it. They asked him like 3 times. They asked him after the Washington. I think they asked him like in spring ball, at the beginning of spring ball. They asked him after like the spring game. Remember all the deep balls they were giving up? They asked him like 3 times, and now he's like, I'm not concerned about that. No big deal. and at one point, my theory, I was like, dude, it's got to be Johnny Nansen. It's got to be Johnny Nansen coming in with some freaky, exotic looks that he knows are going to discombobulate QBs, and probably watching his DBs get better, no doubt about it, and watching that pass rush get better. But to your point about the havoc rates, it kind of proves my theory that he knew Nansen was coming in with a bag of tricks. And he was like, most quarterbacks ain't going to have that much time against us anyway to take advantage of the secondary. And turns out, I think he was right. Now, the secondary is still legit, but you're right. The pressure getting home finally, because they were getting the pressure in 2023 too. They just weren't getting home. Now they were actually getting home, making plays. Those havoc plays you talk about made a huge difference, man. And I think a lot of it is the NASCAR package itself. I would say this. Statistically, you can make the argument it's responsible for that havoc rate boost that you just brought up. You can throw it out there that it's just that the NASCAR package, I think the NASCAR package havoc rate was hovering around like close to 30%. Like it's just
insane. That is insane.
It's insane, dude. I'm telling you, because I mean, think about it. It was always a passing situation. It was usually third and long, and they weren't playing elite quarterbacks. And the only time they got burned on that is when the quarterback would like extend the play and then find a guy downfield. I mean, Michigan did that a couple of times against them, and Cade Klubnik did it a couple of times. But that's usually about it. Good stuff there, guys. Good stuff. All right. Colt got super chat. He says, I don't know if it's CJ. I don't know what he's trying to say. But Colt, thank you very much.
I hope your homework's done, Colt.
Exactly. Hope you getting us in trouble, Colt, man. Hope you get that approved, and hope you got your homework done. But we appreciate the super chat, buddy. Daniel here with a super chat says, thank you, Daniel, for the super chat. Very kind of you. Who will be the most impactful newcomer to the secondary next year? Oh, I guess how do you define newcomer, I guess, is the question. Just somebody who gets the first real action, like their first like substantive action. Because he will be considered. Is he considered a newcomer?
Jonah Williams would be the popular answer, but I don't know how much football he's going to do between now and camp. So that's going to just make me take a little pause. I think at the very least, Jonah Williams is going to be a core special teams guy, and he'll get some snaps. Man, as far as newcomers, look, until I hear otherwise, man, I hope Cade Phillips gets a chance to compete. I think Cade Phillips at the corner opposite Manny Muhammad, and maybe even, Rod, you make a great point with this all the time, and I think it's worth repeating because considering how many questions we get about it. As Texas continues to move away from being a strict field and boundary defense, Cade Phillips is the kind of guy that could play either or. Yep. So it really doesn't matter. He could be the backup to Manny Muhammad. He could be the starter. He could basically be your number 2 or 3 corner, maybe. The other guy, CJ, I know we've heard a little bit about this guy lately, but Grayson Littleton, if Grayson Littleton can play nickel, I know Jelani McDonald technically right now is going to be the number 2 star, but, you need and I'm not knocking Jelani McDonald's coverage, but you need a more conventional coverage option, let's say, at the nickel position. If something happens to Gilbo, that may be Grayson Littleton. Grayson Littleton may be in the running for that thing. So I would say probably those two. I mean, I know that's not me going out on a limb there, but yeah, I mean, I think those two have the best chance, right, CJ? Unless I'm just missing something.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see Cade Phillips compete at that corner spot. But Santana Wilson, another name that I'm just very intrigued by.
Getting him.
He's a guy towards the back end of the year that felt like, and hearing things behind the scenes, felt like there was a little bit more of a switch, right? Those extra practices, and it's not the same as bowl season normally was back in the day, where you basically get 2 weeks of just basically your 2s and 3s just getting to do whatever they want. Now you're still working some scout team, right? You don't get that focal point, that focus from your coaches. So it's a little different, but it did sound like he was making improvements. He was taking strides towards the back end of the season last year. And of course, getting to sit there on the field at AT&T Stadium ahead of the Cotton Bowl, just watching him go through workouts. That guy can jump, man. He's got some freakish traits to him. Of course, NFL pedigree. If a Kobe Black and a Cade Phillips all end up in a battle for one of those corner spots opposite of Manny Muhammad, I think you're in a great spot. Now, they're all young. Kobe Black right now is the incumbent to that cornerback 2 spot. So it's going to be tough to see him hold off, who else is coming up the ladder there. But, look, I'm really excited for both of those guys. On top of that, I need to check back in on a Wardell Mack because, again, another name that kind of gets thrown by the wayside when you start to consider the nickel spot where he might be on that food chain for corner. But, look, there's some talent there. Who might be the most impactful newcomer to the secondary next year? I might go back to like a Jordan Johnson Rubel. A guy who we saw every now and then, but not a full-time contributor, just in the sense that, hey, when it wasn't an Andrew Makuba on the field, when they didn't have Derek Williams the second half of the year, when they needed to give a Michael Taff a break, who was on the field there at the time last year? It was Jordan Johnson Rubel late in the season as that 4th or maybe 5th option at safety if McDonald was down at star. So I felt like he was next up last year early on. Can he kind of parlay that into more playing time this year? I think so. And I think he will certainly be an impactful guy when on the field because of that IQ.
Yeah. The other thing to think about too, guys, when we talk about newcomers in the secondary, as talented as these young guys are, if we start hearing about them targeting corners in the portal when the spring portal window opens, then I don't think that means that they dislike the young guys. They just think, hey, maybe we need somebody who's more ready right now than those young cats are. So I wouldn't completely dismiss the idea of them going to get either corner help or maybe just straight up nickel help in the portal.
Yeah, that's why cross training guys are going to be important. You got to give Jalen Gilbo some work at corner this spring. See if you kind of like that. See if he can make that transition. Give Jelani McDonald more work at the nickel. See if maybe his coverage skills are a little bit underrated. Maybe to expand his role there. I'm with you though, Jeff. I do. I think you may want to explore that, but I would explore cross training, and which they're already doing, by the way. Just cross training more guys to manufacture that depth. But no, it's a good point. I just can't wait to see these Longhorn corners. I think they're gonna do a lot of bump and run coverage and press coverage in spring with some of these long arm DBs. Like you said, that's the thing about Janae Barron. Go watch him run. Janae Barron has really short arms. And that's probably the only knock in his data is evaluation, is that he has short arms. Short arms are really bad for bump and run coverage, right? Short arms are really bad for anything that if you're going to be in what kind of a combat one-on-one situation where we got to go up against one another like that. And usually for a DB, if you're playing off coverage, hey, man, you can rely on instincts and timing and getting out of your break really good and nice footwork. If you're going to play press man, and one thing Rod B had, I had pretty good speed. I did have really long arms and a really long wingspan for a corner. It helps in press. And I think for Texas, one of the things they're looking at, T-Rex arms. I love J.D. Barrett, but J. Barrett, go watch him run his 40. It's like T-Rex arms. He's like it's like he's like T-Rex out there. So I think for these guys, go look at them. That's one thing they all have in common. Really long arms, man. They all and that's because I think they want to get to playing press more. But you do have to have the, kind of the measurables. Just get up there and just play press consistently. I think that's kind of what the type of athlete they're recruiting now. All right, thank you for that question. That was a good one. We appreciate that. Let's thank our good friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery before we move on here with the live stream. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. I'm a huge fan of the Super Texan. In fact, I'm not the only one. My wife loves it. My mother-in-law loves it. My mom loves it, and you'll love it too. You can try it. It's at your local Specs. I also saw it display at our local Central Market. So the good word is getting out about the great wines at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Of course, Flat Creek not only produces some of the best wines on the market, but also is a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. Perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. Also, one of our members of the Owen Texas football family told us they got engaged recently at Flat Creek Estate Winery. So no matter what the occasion, no matter how fancy or extravagant it is, our friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery, they can accommodate you. I can assure you of that. Check them out at flatcreekestate.com. That's flatcreekestate.com. Really appreciate them for sponsoring our Wednesday live stream. All right, let's get back to it here. Thank you guys for the super chat.
Short arms.
I'm serious. Was I the only one who noticed that? I wasn't trying to mock my man because he's awesome. He's great. He's going to be my DBU rankings. I think he's going to end up being like 5th or 6th all time, right outside the Mount Rushmore of DBU. But that's the only knock on his eval right now. He's got short arms. He just got real short arms. That's all right. Nothing wrong with that. That's okay. All right. He still ran a 4.39. So what can I say? Ran faster than Rod B. All right. So I ain't mocking him. Edgar here says OSU game 1. Considering roster changes on both sides, I'm loving Texas' chances. They're going to be fired up in those icy whites. Oh, you're right. Stormtroopers, baby. It's a W, says Edgar. Thoughts and Rod, killer secondary analysis. Thank you, Edgar. I appreciate that, brother. Appreciate the super chat as well. What do you guys think about how confident Edgar is about meeting up with the defending champions week 1?
Ooh, I don't know. It's too early yet for me to see kind of where each team stacks up, without having known what each team needs or is looking at for spring football. But I will say this, there are a lot of similarities to the 2023 meeting in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. Of course, head coach remains, but you replace an offensive coordinator. You replace a defensive coordinator. You lose a lot to the draft. Oh, and you're breaking in a first-year starter who, look, has a lot of pretty high shoes to fill, right? 2022, Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy. Last year, Will Howard ended up winning a national championship. Is that pressure for this new quarterback who is expected to be, I believe Julian's saying, I actually spoke with a Ohio State reporter in Indianapolis about that game just briefly. And look, there's a lot of confidence that Ohio State will be able to replenish what they will lose. And like Texas, they had 14 people invited to the combine. They're expected to see another big draft class depart. But hey, they have to replace their entire defensive line. You got big time, changes at key positions that you're going to have to be, on point for, right? Donovan Jackson, another guy that played a big role for Ohio State this year. But just like how Texas is amped up about a Ryan Wingo, a Colin Simmons, and Anthony Hill, I don't know if you can find a better defensive back in the country than Caleb Downs going into year 3. And I know for sure there's not a better wide receiver in the country than Jeremiah Smith. So they're going to have plenty of talent. And of course, I have to go back to the Jeremiah Smith conversation because look, Texas, they did a great job taking him out of that game in the Cotton Bowl. 1 catch, 3 yards. That catch came behind the line of scrimmage. Will that remain the case, right? Cornell Tate returns. Brandon Ennis, another former 5-star number 1 overall wide receiver, now inserted into that lineup. We'll see. Texas doesn't have a Thorpe Award winner back there. They don't have an Andrew Makuba anymore, but they will have what we're talking about, which could be more length in that secondary. Does that make up for a lack of Makuba and Barron? We'll see. Right now, again, pretty early, but I love Arch Manning's first road start in the Horseshoe. Sign me up for it. Great for college football.
Oh, you're muted, Jeff.
Sorry, I took a drink to mute and didn't mute. Do we know if Brian Hartline's calling plays?
He is. I believe so. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point. That kind of gave me some pause too, because look, it's going to be Ryan Day's system, right? That's all Brian Hartline knows, but he's never been a play caller before. And Ryan Day, again, having given Chip Kelly the keys to his kingdom offensively, he had to kind of take a step back and say, look, offensive play calling was my thing, right? This is my baby. My system is kind of how I made my name in this world. Take a step back and still hand the keys away to another guy, a disciple of his and his tree, right, with Brian Hartline, that's going to be interesting. And I'm not sure yet what that might entail for an Ohio State new quarterback situation and whatnot. But it's not going to be Chip Kelly, who dialed up some pretty devious plays against Texas in that Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, it's Julian Sain and Taven St. Clair in the quarterback battle there. Well, my deal with Hartline is Brian Hartline's Ohio State royalty, any way you slice it, right? Yeah. And if you give him play calling duties, man, if it doesn't work out, if you're Ryan Day, do you take back play calling at some point during the season? And if that gets out, if you try to keep it behind the scenes and it gets out, how does the fan base react that you just demoted a guy that, Ryan Day is there because Ohio State's paying him a lot of money. Brian Hartline's at Ohio State because he loves Ohio State and bleeds scarlet and gray. So I don't know, man. That's something that'll play out throughout the whole year. But man, if I'm Brian Hartline, I would not want my first game calling plays. We talked about it a lot, Rod, during the Tom Herman era with play calling, where calling plays and managing a game, there's a rhythm to it. There's a feel to it. Somebody who's never done it before, you're going to go up against, Pete Kwiatkowski and Johnny Nansen and Dwayne Akina putting together a game plan to stop you.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's not a place I'd want to be.
No. Yeah. No, that's a good point. And my thing was, if Hartline was the guy, he's been in-house this whole time. I mean, if you want to promote him, you could have done that. But they went to Chip Kelly because they thought, hey, man, we need the best, possible option, right? Our best possible candidate for this job. So I do wonder if they're settling, but who knows? I mean, Brian Hartline may be fantastic in that offensive coordinator play caller role. But I'm with you, Edgar. The only reason I am confident, but I'm not overconfident because they have so many great players. I mean, that wide receiver room, I don't know how many CJ broke down, but it's like 4 or 5-star receivers in that room right now. Like 4. So they're loaded. And I do wonder if, Texas secondary, they better be ready for it. Because I think they're going to take a lot of shots at Texas secondary. That's how I would try to win the game. I'm not messing with that front. That front got Anthony Hill in there. That front got Colin Simmons. You got Trey Moore in that front. Maybe you can try to run inside on Texas maybe a little bit. But I think if I'm attacking Texas next season, I know where I'm going. If I got 5-star receivers like that, I'm going after the second. And you just lost Jadae Barron and Makuba. I'm going after that young secondary. And I think they're going to be up to the task because that's my dog, Coach Akina. But they're unproven largely. So.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a huge game for the Texas Edges. And that's Trey Moore, that's Colin Simmons, that's a Colton Vasek and Ethan Burke if they're ready to roll, right? Colin Simmons in that Cotton Bowl, he ate alive Josh Fryer, the right tackle for Ohio State. There was a big play on 3rd down in which was converted by Will Howard on an out route, maybe corner route to the near sideline. And I don't know if y'all saw it. I'm sure the chat remembers this play, but Colin Simmons was basically in a headlock getting held on that outside. And it was probably the one time in which the refs were like, hey, this is happening every single play. We can't call it every single play. But Colin had a tremendous game in that game against Ohio State. I'm expecting him to come back, as we talked about earlier today with Bobby and Jerry. He's taken this offseason personally, right? And he did so whenever he first got to college. So I'm expecting him to continue to take that next leap. That sophomore slump, I don't think will be a thing for him. And if that's the case, Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, those 2 edges I mentioned as well, it's going to have to be a huge game for them to create pressure on a young quarterback and prevent, or at least, kind of dial it down a little bit with these 5-star wide receivers that will be out there. That's going to be the best friend for Texas. That Texas secondary next year is Colin Simmons 100%. So I'm excited to see how that matchup goes once again in Columbus.
Yeah, nothing helps the young secondary like pressure. I my first year starting, I had Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers on the D line, and I was like, I don't think college football is that hard because I'd have to cover for like 2.5 seconds every time. I was like, every time I would turn around, the quarterback would be under pressure or throwing the ball away or get sacked. I was like, this ain't that hard. And then I lost those 2 guys, and I was like, oh, I get it now. Yeah. Without the pressure, whole different ball game.
the X factor with this Ohio State game that needs to be mentioned. So this was going to be the last year that Texas would have been in the Big 12. And that Fox contract that the Big 10 has, they kind of wanted to be made whole as much as possible. That's the only reason the Michigan game was switched to being in Ann Arbor last year. If that Ohio State game was in Columbus, if I'm Sark, I would 6 days a week and twice on Sunday take that game being an 11 a.m. kickoff for Fox to get it to big noon than it being a night game.
Yes. Great point. Agreed. Yeah. That can make a huge difference.
Yeah. That's the difference between hungover Ohio State fan and we've had all day to get lubricated Ohio State fan.
Yeah. No, it was like when everybody was happy with that they got that Arkansas game last year. They was like, woo, there we go. Thank God for that one. Yeah, I'm going to play Arkansas at night down there at Fayetteville. That'd be wild. So you're right about that.
Yeah. I've been to Fayetteville after dark. I did it once and would love to not ever do it again. So
2021, you didn't have fun, Jeff?
Fayetteville, Lubbock's another place that I'm glad I don't have to be in after dark.
That's exactly. Some places after dark, they turn into a whole different monster, man.
Yeah, Jeff. So I guess you weren't here whenever we made this conversation ahead of the Fayetteville trip, to Arkansas. I've long said this, and I have this belief. I've got friends in both places. Arkansas and Texas Tech fans are the exact same person, except Arkansas fans know how to end up with a roof over their head by the end of the night. That's the only difference.
I've always thought of Tech fans as like Ohio State fans are Tech fans with a good football program. Like if Tech had a historically good football program, that's what Ohio State fans are. Like Ohio State fans have a reason to be as like arrogant and obnoxious as they are. Tech, you had that one time with Mike Leach, that one time where you won 11 games. Other than that, what do you really have?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some underrated places in the Big 12 too for road games. I mean, Stillwater. Rod, I think you were there.
Stillwater
State game in 2012.
Yeah,
where David Ash had that 4th down pass to Mike Davis. That was probably the loudest venue I've ever been in. I was standing about 5 feet from Kevin Durant when that happened. It was like you can't hear yourself think. It's just like this just noise like shaking outside of your head. Morgantown at night was interesting.
Yeah.
There Ames at night, if Iowa State was good, if
they're good.
It ain't I'm telling you, man, Fayetteville at night is that's a different animal, man.
I agree. Well, yeah, even the fans need to be on guard. Like it ain't just hostile environment for the guys on the field. It's hostile for everybody who's there.
you know the story, Rod, that we talk about. I mean, our guy Craig Wade. Craig was walking to the press box in Fayetteville in 2004 before that game and got a pimento cheese sandwich thrown at him. Like if you're throwing pimento cheese sandwiches at the play-by-play guy, like your fan base is a little bit different in how they feel about that.
Craig thought they had recognized, and they didn't recognize him. We thought they recognized him, like, oh, that's Craig Wade. They were like, hey, that's Craig Wade. And then Craig turned around, and that was a sandwich headed toward his face. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is hilarious. It's such a great story. All right, let's thank our friends over at South Point before we move on. Hey, Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. And right now is a great opportunity for you to score big because they have a deal happening right now with over 50 Ram Ram 2500s, all of them marked down with huge savings right now at South Point Dodge. And you can go check out their exclusive inventory off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can make it easy on yourself and go online today, right now, as a matter of fact, at southpointdodge.com, and go check out their inventory. Over 600 vehicles in stock, folks. So if you need something, there's a good chance they have it at South Point Dodge. So whether it's a trade-in for you, or whether you need a new car or a used car, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. Austin's automotive everything. That is southpointdodge.com. We really appreciate them for being a part of the On Texas football family and sponsoring our Wednesday night live stream. David Keith Williams always has great questions, and he's got another one here. Like this one says, Rod Babers, what can UT do to keep all the safeties in the program? Michael Taft, Derek Williams, Jelani McDonald, Jordan Rubel, Xavier Filsaime, Jonah Williams, Zealous Hicks are all NFL picks. Great point there. He also points out if newcomer means true freshman, it has to be K. Phillips, who makes the biggest impact of the newcomers in the secondary. I think Phillips is the most athletically gifted defensive back on the entire Texas roster, even as a true freshman. Yeah, I mean, I tell the story. I got a chance to coach him at a camp, and even at the time, I was like, man, that dude's going to play. I told him, I was like, you got a chance to play at the next level, period. I mean, all you need to do is stay focused and keep working hard. You're going to play at the next level. I didn't know he's going to become a 5-star cornerback. I just know he looked pretty good in the drills. But I agree with you. And I said something. He can. I know they were thinking about him playing safety at some other places, and he's got that kind of size. But he can play press man. He can play man-to-man coverage. He's got the feet for it. So I'm a big Kate Phillips fan. I think, that guy with that kind of ceiling, he should at least make things interesting at that cornerback spot opposite Malik Muhammad. Can he beat out Kobe Black? He shouldn't, if Kobe Black's taking care of business. But I mean, that young man, like I said, he's a 5-star with a ton of talent. And like I said, he can play press man. Think about playing press man is if you're gonna put somebody out there to play a lot of it, I don't need them to really improve their football acumen, and I don't need them to learn many of the nuances of the game out there. I just need them to be a technician out there playing man coverage if they're going to play more of that. So if Kate Phillips wins that job, to me that means, they must be playing a lot more man coverage. They know they're going to play a lot more man coverage, and that's why they're cool with a young buck doing that. Getting back to your first point, though, guys, about the safeties, I think you should start playing more 3-high safeties. They did it last season. Go watch the Ohio State game. Played more 3-high safety guys, and I remember them playing actually in any game. I didn't actually track it, and I probably will go back when I got some time. But off the eye test, I remember them playing more 3-high safeties, inverted Tampa 2 looks than they did in any game so far this season. They've been playing that 3-high safety look since I think they were playing at Colorado State. I saw it, and I remember I brought it up there. So maybe you just play more safeties. It's just that simple. It's just play more of those guys situationally, and it may be a matchup thing depending on the opponent that week that you can play more of those safeties. So Texas likes to rotate their guys, right, until they figure out what their actual, like, the trusted rotation is. They'll rotate a lot of those guys early on. Maybe we just see an expanded rotation of safeties.
Yeah, could be the case.
All right.
And look, Rod, I like what you said, because look, I don't know if you probably won't see Texas ever move to that true 3-high look, though they did have some, like, a wrinkle close to it. Yeah. But look, if you put a Jelani McDonald on the field at the nickel spot, you do have 3 safeties on the field. One's just playing nickel, and Texas did that several times. They had him on the field against Texas A&M. He played there sparingly against Clemson, but specifically against Arizona State, it felt like he never came off the field in that game. Just having a big body that can cover, right? A guy that can take care of a slot wide receiver or a big tight end, that's basically right down the alley for Jelani McDonald, who, let's not forget, was a cornerback at the All-American Bowl down in San Antonio, going against some of the best wide receivers in the country right before he ended up in Austin. So that has always been a part of his game, that cornerback background, spun over to safety. Oklahoma State kind of, when he was committed there at the time, and said, hey, you're going to play everywhere, right? It's going to be that hybrid DB. Mm-hmm. I kind of see that vision trickling down to Austin as well with Jelani. And to that point, now you can envision, a Michael Taft playing that center field spot. You can spin him down opposite as well and just say, hey, Derek Williams or Xavier Filsaime, go play center field. And you got your best coverage guy from 2 years ago and an athletic freak back deep. Options are there. It's going to be up to Keon. It's going to be up to PK. It's going to be up to Nansen to figure out what that rotation looks like. But, y'all said it. It's going to be tough to keep a Zealous Hicks. It's going to be tough to keep a Jonah Williams sidelined as long as possible. But again, when you got this many guys, it's a great problem to have.
Yeah. Amen. Amen to that.
It's a good problem to have, and you know, I think part of it is there's only so much the coaches can do. Like it's not, you know, this isn't, you know, your high school football team where you want to, or your pee wee football team where you want to try to get everybody snaps. You got to go win games. You're trying to win a national championship. So Rod, you've been in those deep secondaries where there's going to be some really talented guys that don't play a whole lot.
Yeah.
But if guys are patient, one, and two, understand that, hey, my opportunity for this staff to trust me is what I do when I'm on teams, that could be the way guys earn playing time. Maybe not in 25, but in 26.
Good point.
A zealous Hicks or somebody like that could maybe kind of like Trey Wisner did going from 23 to 24, where it's like, hey, this guy busted his tail covering kicks or being, you know, a jammer on the punt return team or a gunner on the punt team, whatever it was. Let's see what he does now that we've got him at a position and get him in the 2 deep and get him some snaps. So it's not a perfect world. There's no good answer for it. Like CJ said, it's a great problem to have, but understand that some of these guys won't get a lot of snaps on the field. They're going to find their way covering kicks and being part of return units.
Yep. And I also wonder if they, you know, when they run the dime package, the NASCAR dime, just like they have the big nickel with Jelena McDonough out there, and essentially, like CJ said, it's a 3 safety package. And last year when they ran the dime, you know, it was 4 corners essentially out there. You put, you know, Gavin Holmes out there, you know, with Jahdae Barron, with Malik Muhammad, with Jalen Gilbert, and those are kind of your 4 corners with 2 safeties. Why not 4 safeties and 2 corners?
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Rod, who do you think spins to the middle like we saw Jahdae play in the box with an Anthony Hill? Do you have an early candidate for who might take over that spot?
Well, when Jonah Williams is ready, it's him. But until then, yeah, I mean, that's the easy. But
I mean, could that just be the simple plug and play for like a Jelani McDonald?
It seems like Jelani McDonald's right now the one that makes the most sense there. But then sometimes it's about instincts. Some guys like Jahdae Barron didn't fit there. We talked about how short his arms are. He's small, and yet in the box he was great at blitzing, had great anticipation, was a great in run support. You know, so I think Jelani McDonald right now is the first one that jumps to mind. But I could see, you know, maybe someone else just kind of fitting, just having the instincts and the feel in the box a little bit better. But maybe in your dime package, it ain't 4 corners. Maybe it's 4 safeties because you're so talented there.
Yeah. Rod, we talked about it on Football Theory, which will be up tomorrow on the channel. Make sure you check out Football Theory with Rod and myself.
That's right.
But I like the options you've got in your sub packages. We talked about it today, and I didn't even mention Leunga Lafau, but between Leunga Lafau, Brad Spence, Anthony Hill, and Ty Anthony Smith for a sub package, you can have 3 linebackers on the field.
You could,
yeah.
You can mix and match, and that's the thing. Like, you don't have to be the beauty of the talent and the versatility the position flex Texas has now. You're not beholden to just one. Okay, this is our dime package. This is our nickel package. It could be whatever you want it to be. Like, just you want to have your, you know, you want to run some 3-3 with 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers. Get after it, because Anthony Hill and Brad Spence are going to be good enough pass rushers that, hey, just let Leunga Lafau play the middle of the field, or bring in Ty Anthony Smith, who can cover and not be, you know, at a physical disadvantage. So I mean, the options are endless, man. I love the options that PK has, and that's why the transition he's making right now, bringing in Leon Clark to coach edges, where now PK can be the roving coordinator and take a step back. I love that role for him, because he hasn't had this many options, and it's going to give him the spring and summer in camp to just figure out how to use all these guys, how to deploy your weapons.
Yep, it's a great point there, Jeff. Let's give some props to our friends over at Bluebird Organizing before we get close to the end of our live stream here. Are you and your family feeling overwhelmed, stressed in your space? Well, holding on to too much stuff without enough room for it? I think we all can relate to that. Navigating a big transition in life, maybe moving, maybe it's divorce, maybe it's empty nesting, maybe it's having kids for you. If you're ready to bring more order and calm to the space you spend every day, Bluebird Organizing is the answer, folks. Austin's premier professional organizers help you wherever you are in life. Doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what the situation is. You'll end your overwhelm and get organized and make your space work for you. If the thought of having someone come look at your personal space is a bit overwhelming, all right, it can seem like that's a bit intrusive. Well, Bluebird Organizing understands that. So it's no small ask to let a stranger come into your home. But with Bluebird Organizing, folks, it's worth it. There's no judgment at all. only efficient plans that can resolve conflicts at home and change your life for the better. So what are you waiting for? Give them a call today or text them as well. Maybe you're a little too busy for the call. 737-346-7779. That's 737-346-7779. Or visit bluebirdorganizing.net. That's bluebirdorganizing.net to book your free, that's right, free in-person consultation today. You got nothing to lose, but so much to gain with Bluebird Organizing. So check them out at bluebirdorganizing.net, and we appreciate them for being sponsors of our Wednesday night live stream. All right, a couple of questions before we get out of here. How about this one from Joseph? He says, how do you guys think the Neil Brown hire will affect the offense or add anything to the offense in the running game? Jeff, you predicted this would happen since you heard the Chad Scott news. So you've been thinking about it probably longer than any of us. So what are your thoughts about Neil Brown's impact?
Hey, real quick, I got to show this off. So I've been getting some comments on, hey, my wall's starting to fill out. This piece will be going up, man. I got this framed up today. Rod, you recognize this. Chris Sims autograph, ESPN the magazine. That's college football preview. So,
oh man, now, hold on. Let's look at that again. I'm gonna take a picture of that for my boy Sims. I'm gonna send that.
That's gonna go up on the wall.
Let me take a picture of that thing real quick. Bang.
That's sweet.
I'm gonna send that to my boy Sims, dog. That's a Jessica. I'm jealous. I ain't gonna lie, I'm jealous. I got a Sims like portrait back here, and I ain't even got him. So I gotta give him to sign it, man. It's crazy. I ain't even got one of my best friends. I ain't even got him to sign it, damn thing.
Yeah, I've been getting all my Longhorn pieces, been getting them out of the closets and stuff. I'm like, oh man, I forgot I had that. I got that. Those are good stuff. Now I with the Neil Brown hire, I kind of, after Rod and I recorded Football Theory today, I kind of went down a rabbit hole and lost my damn mind. West Virginia had one of the most explosive run games in the country the last 2 years.
Wow.
And CJ, I'll give you credit for pointing out how big of a part of West Virginia's run game Garrett Green was. But I started looking at the numbers, Rod. Garrett Green, he runs of 10-plus yards. He had 30 in 2023.
Wow.
And 33 in 2024.
Damn.
That was 8th best in FBS among quarterbacks.
Wow.
The number that really jumped out to me, though, I went and looked at PFF and went and looked at design runs that gained 15 yards or more.
Okay.
Garrett Green had 9 of those in 2023 and 12 in 2024. It's design runs that gained 15 or more yards. And I went and looked at what Texas has had in those areas. The only ball carriers at Texas over the last 2 years that have had more design runs of 15 yards or more than Garrett Green had this past season, Jonathan Brooks had 16 in 2023, and Trey Wise had 15 last year.
Wow.
So Garrett Green's 12 would be the third highest total on the Texas team over the last 2 years of design runs that gain 15 yards or more. So what that tells you is Neil Brown knows how to design a run game fitted around the quarterback. Now, I got a story. I got my column up on this at ontexasfootball.com right now. And so you guys, you'll see how far, like I just went like Russell Crowe, Beautiful Mind, and just kind of lost my mind. But the bottom line for me was, looking at what they can, Sark is never going to be a guy that turns his offense into the Urban Meyer pro spread offense, right? He's never going to run the quarterback 10, 12 times a game.
Yeah.
But he's going to be calculated in how he uses arch. But Neil Brown's the kind of guy that can show him, hey, let's have some variety to our run game. Let's have some variety to our read option. That way, whenever we do break the glass and pull the emergency switch and let Arch keep it on a read option, that way they can't get a beat on when it's coming. Like we want that. They want that to be, Brian Harsin used to call them silver bullets, right? Those lethal shots. You want your Arch design runs to be those. So I just think Neil Brown's coming into Texas at the perfect time to get the most out. And really, Sark hasn't really ever had a quarterback run game. I mean, his most productive runners really is Jake Locker and then everybody else. You realize Sark there's been 16 seasons where I think it's 16 or 14 seasons where he's either been a head coach or I even included the one game he called at Alabama in 2016 because Jalen Hurts had 60 yards in that national championship game where Sark called plays. Sark's only had 4 quarterbacks that have rushed for 100 or more yards in a season.
Wow.
Jake Locker did it twice, Casey Thompson, and then Arch last year.
Damn, Arch did, because Arch had that big run. That was like most of the damn. Yeah, you're right. That's great stuff. Dang, that's fantastic. So CJ, you may be onto something that the designed quarterback run game, to Jeff's point, because the studies will show you that quarterbacks are more protected with design runs than they are when you just decide to either it's a zone read and they decide to run themselves, or it's a scramble. You want to be able to protect them. Design runs are meant to protect them. They know where the blocks are going to be. They should know where the hole opens up. So I do wonder now if they just want to really, if you start soup up the quarterback run game a little bit. And like you said, Jeff, get those silver bullets you're discussing there and have them ready and be strategic, right? A couple of them early on in the season, all right, against inferior opponents. I don't even know what you want to do versus Ohio State. I don't know what you want to do versus them. I don't know. I don't know if you want to break it out versus Ohio State, but you want to plant those seeds early on in the season. So later on, when you get the SEC play, everybody's got to account for the quarterback run game a little bit in the red zone and in the zone read and with the scramble drills and things. And it'll open up so much more of the offense. So I can't wait to see when he plants those seeds and when he decides to, let those silver bullets loose. It's good stuff there, Jeff. Great stuff. Great rabbit holing, as CJ and I call it. All right, that's the end of our live stream. Thank you guys for all the questions. We really appreciate it. Oh, we got one more sponsor we got to thank. Let me thank Lifetime Longhorn, my former teammate Brett Robin, actually, because he is going to be our final sponsor we thank this evening. So special thanks to Dr. Brett Robin at the Austin Orthopedic Institute for sponsoring On Texas Football in our Wednesday night live stream. Dr. Robin, a former Longhorn running back, but also a former teammate of mine, the Lifetime Longhorn. And he knows what it takes to stay in the game, and he's here for athletes of all ages, specializing in musculoskeletal health. Dr. Robin treats joint pain and injuries with a conservative approach first, but also offers advanced surgical options, including arthroscopic procedures, fracture management, and total joint replacements if necessary. With convenient offices all over Austin, Georgetown, and Killeen, Dr. Robin is accepting new patients right now, as a matter of fact. So if you're looking for a top-notch orthopedic specialist, look no further than Dr. Brett Robin. Give him a call. I can vouch for the man's character. It is fantastic. He's a great human being, but also a great doctor. So give him a call. 512-856-1000, 512-856-1000. And get back to your active lifestyle and doing what you love. Thank you to Lifetime Longhorn, Brett Robin. So it turns out I have 2 ex-teammates that have become doctors, too. Somebody said Chris Stockton was a doctor at one point. So there you go. So I wouldn't trust all my teammates, all right, giving me a diagnosis, but Dr. Brett Robin, I would trust him. No doubt about that. And you should as well. All right. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to SouthPointDodge.com. Thank you to FlatCreekEstate.com. Thank you to Dr. Brett Robin as well, and BluebirdOrganizing.net. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. He is a real MVP. Great stuff, Jeff Howe, as usual. CJ, you knocked it out of the park, man. Appreciate y'all. Great live stream. Thank you guys for all the questions and their participation and the super chats. If I missed any of your questions, it was not intentional. I assure you, tried to get to them. We just can't go all night. Please direct them to the guys over at Coffee and Football in the morning, starting at 8:15. They'll be more than willing to answer your questions, or you can direct them to the guys for the winning drive, which will be myself, CJ Vogel, and Coach Bob Shipley. That'll be tomorrow around 3:15. So if we didn't get to you today, we'll get to you tomorrow. I promise you that. Thank you guys for everything, and for Jeff Howe, and for CJ, and for Matthew. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.